Hello, everybody, and welcome to That Wrestling Show, the only podcast where all pro wrestling matters. I am your host, Bill Yankovi, and my goodness, what a week of professional wrestling that has taken place. Just unbelievable stuff all around. This week's episode is going to be a little bit different than most episodes because I just really want to focus on the week that we had in professional wrestling. Because, well, I mean, it was a pretty damn good week to be a fan. It doesn't matter if it's WWE, NXT, New Japan, AEW. It was just a very good week all around to be a fan of professional wrestling. Now, I'm going to be honest with you guys, because, well, I try to always be honest with you all. That's the thing. That's the thing real quick I should mention with a podcast, is if you're considering doing a podcast, be honest with your audience, because if you lie to them, you're going to lose them. So the only show I did see was AEW, which I'll get to in a little bit. But New Japan had the show in England, where Kenta won the never openweight title, and Hiroshi Tanahashi won the British heavyweight title from Zack Sabre Jr., so that's going to set up, at least with those two, an angle for a little while. I don't know if it's going to go all the way to Wrestle Kingdom next year or not, but it'll be very interesting to see how that goes. NXT UK had their takeover event. I wish I had seen it. I was so busy that day. I might try to watch at least the main event this weekend, because I've heard nothing but praise about the main event between Tyler Bate and Walter. Some are saying it's a match of the year candidate. I mean, it has to be that good, and especially for the fact that Meltzer gave it, I think it was like 5.25 stars in the Observer newsletter this week, which I'll mention in a little bit when discussing the AEW show. But yeah, you know, NXT UK was really well done. Raw was good this week, I thought. The King of the Ring tournament is continuing. They're, moving along. I just like how this tournament is going. I really do. And you're now down to the final 5. I mean, this tournament, I'm going to say it. The way this tournament has been booked has been unbelievably well done. Because, again, we had another week where, okay, Andrade is going to win. He's going to go to the semifinals. Ali's going to win, going to go to the semifinals. And they both lose. So the SmackDown side, it's Elias versus Chad Gable. And I actually want to see that match between Elias and Chad. Because Elias, I mean, I could praise that man so many times. It just doesn't do justice. He is that good of a talent. And Chad Gable, I think they're now starting to really push him as a singles competitor. And because he has the natural talent. He just needed that chance, needed that space. And that's what the King of the Ring tournament is for, folks. The King of the Ring tournament is meant to push stars. And right now, the biggest benefactor is Chad Gable. And if Chad Gable gets to the finals of that tournament, if he gets to the finals at Clash of Champions, man, that's gonna be a fun time to watch. Now with Raw, Baron Corbin beat Cedric Alexander, but Cedric Alexander looked really great in that match. And I'm not saying that Baron Corbin didn't. Corbin did a very good job as well. But man, Cedric Alexander looked great. And then Samoa Joe and Cedric Alexander, or Ricochet, had that unusual finish where they double pinned each other, and it was an interesting way. I know there are people who were upset about how it ended, but I thought it was a creative way to say, you know what? We didn't want either one of these guys eliminated. We want to push them on. So now we have a triple threat match for this Monday night in Madison Square Garden. That's just unbelievable to think that the semifinals of the King of the Ring this coming week is in Madison Square Garden, where you have, for Raw, Ricochet, Samoa Joe, Baron Corbin, which is going to be a good match. And then SmackDown is Elias and Chad Gable, and I hope the people that go to that show, the people that go to SmackDown for Madison Square Garden, I hope they don't crap on that match, because I really think that's going to be a good match. Just give it a chance. Like I said, from the very beginning when they released the brackets, it was going to be very hard to pick who's going to win the tournament. And now we're down to the final 5, and of those 5, there's probably 1 or 2 that were at least considered being there, at this point. So, can't wait to see how that goes. Also, really good Firefly Funhouse this week. I enjoyed that segment. That was really good. My favorite part, because I talked to Jim Boy Star, who I do Eliminated, a Royal Rumble podcast with. The best part of that episode, and you had to catch it. So if you've seen it and you missed it, I'm going to recommend you go back to this. There's a part in the episode, in the episode, where there's Bray, there's Mercy the Buzzard, there's Huskus the pig, and there's the doll. And then here's Ramblin' Rabbit. You see Ramblin' Rabbit, and he's holding up this little sign that says help, and Bray just pushes him down. It was the funniest thing. Oh, it was so good. But, $35 for that puppet. Anyway, that was a really good segment. I didn't stay up to see the end of Raw, but watching the Bayley clip was very, very interesting. I sort of want to see at this point if, come Survivor Series, we get Bayley and Becky Lynch. That'll be very interesting to see how they do there, but of course, the big thing that I'm going to talk about this week is AEW, which I'll get to in a minute. But before I do that, I want to mention, because NXT goes live on the USA Network in about 2 weeks, on September the 18th. And, it's like, it's going to be 2 hours every Wednesday night. Not so fast, because, it was announced this week that only the first hour will be shown live on the USA Network on September 18th and the 25th. The second hour is going to be shown on the WWE Network. The reason is they got to finish up Suits. They got to finish up that show. It's got like 4 episodes left, maybe 3. And instead of screwing people around, they're going to have the first hour of NXT be on the USA Network, and then the second hour be on the WWE Network. So, but then October 2nd comes around, and holy mackerel, be ready for some fun. Okay, so let's talk about All Out, the AEW event that took place last Saturday, and really the last AEW show before they start live television weekly. Held in Chicago, suburban Chicago, sold out the place. Good crowd as always. I mean, Chicago always has a good crowd. This was a fun show to watch from beginning to end. Someone asked me if I thought this was the best show that AEW's put on of the 4. I'm going to say it was the second best. I think Double or Nothing was the best of the 4, but this one was really good as well. This had some good matches, which I'll get into in a moment. So, let's not waste any time. Let's just jump right into it. I'm going to start with the Casino Battle Royal. This was a 21-woman match where the winner would be put in the AEW Women's Championship match for October the 2nd. So, we've done the Casino Battle Royal before. So let's just go and see who the first 5 contestants are. The first 5 were Shalantra Royal, Priscilla Kelly, which surprised me, Fabi Apache, Nyla Rose, and Leva Bates. And basically this first part was Nyla Rose dominating, eliminating every single person that was in the ring. I mean, she took control. I'm going to say Nyla Rose looked very good in this match. Next group of 5 were Penelope Ford, Shaza McKenzie, Sadie Gibbs, Big Swole, and Britt Baker. Got some good spots here, but then this is where it starts to get very interesting. Because the next group of 5, Tennille Dashwood, who just joined Impact, Ivelisse, Bea Priestley, Brandy Rhodes, and Awesome Kong. Well, as they're coming out towards the ring, Britt Baker goes to the outside and she goes after Bea Priestley for what happened back at the end or beginning of July in that tag team match where she ended up getting concussed. So, I mean, she just went right at it, and it looked really, really good. The next group that came out was Allie, Nicole Savoy, Teal Piper, who got a nice reaction, ODB, and Jazz. Piper didn't really last long. I think she was just there because of her last name, but it was also her first professional wrestling match as well, so give her some time. She'll get herself to be better. The final entrant, the wild card, which was a nice surprise because I couldn't really think who would be the last one, was Mercedes Martinez. A nice entry into the match. And then we get to the eliminations, and we end up with the final 4 being Nyla Rose, Britt Baker, Bea Priestley, and Mercedes Martinez. Martinez gets eliminated, and then Priestley is eliminated by Baker, but as Baker is trashing Priestley grabs her by the arm, and that gets Nyla Rose the time to eliminate Baker, and Nyla Rose wins that battle royal to get the title shot. It was an alright match. There were some moments in there. I gave the match a C. It's not the worst match of the night. Get to that one in a little bit. But, it was there. That's the way I felt about that match. That match was there. Is really the best way I can really describe it. So, I gave that match a C. Meltzer gave that match 2.25 stars. CBS Sports gave it a D+. Ouch. That's a bit painful. Then we had tag team action. Jack Evans and Angelico took on Private Party, Mark Quinn and Isaiah Cassidy. This was a good tag team match. I enjoyed this one. Obviously, Private Party is going to be a team to keep a lookout for when the TV show really gets going. Just good back and forth action. Told a good story. Private Party got the win in that one. And then after the match, they shook hands, only for Evans and Angelico to beat up Private Party, which was very interesting. So maybe we got a storyline there with those four. Excuse me. I gave this match a B. Meltzer gave it 3.5 stars. CBS Sports gave it a B-. Then we go to the main show itself. And the opening match was a 6-man tag team match where SCU took on the team of Luchasaurus, Jungle Boy, and Marco Stunt. This was a fun little match. You know, it was a fun match. I think Luchasaurus was the breakout in the match. I mean, he was doing flips and he was doing a lot of high-flying moves, which was very interesting for a guy of his size, his stature, to be doing moves like that. It was very interesting, very well done. Everybody came off looking good. This was another match that I really enjoyed. SCU got the win, pinning Marco Stunt. Like I said, this was a good match. This was a fun 6-man tag team match to start the pay-per-view. I gave this a B. Maybe should be a B+, but I'm going to give it a B. Meltzer gave this 4 stars. CBS gave it a C+. Then we go to this next match, and this is a very interesting match because of how the wrestlers in this match felt after. So this match is Kenny Omega against Pac. Pac, as you guys know, was not really last minute, but maybe like a week note, like a week's notice replacement for Dean, John Moxley. Almost called him Dean Ambrose, but it's John Moxley. I liked this match. This was very good. Not the best match on the pay-per-view, but this was still a good match. You could tell both men were telling a story here. A lot of back and forth wrestling. Good, clean wrestling. They went on the outside for a little bit. You got to see some submission moves. And then the end of the match was very interesting because Kenny Omega attempted the one wing angel. Pac was able to reverse it. And then, as he's reversing it, he puts Omega into this submission that I'd never seen before. It was very, very interesting. It was like a crucifix, like he was attempting to go for a crucifix pin, but it ended up being a submission. It was a crucifix submission, and I guess it was a way where Pac was able to stretch the arms out, and it was making Omega breathe harder and harder, and he just couldn't hold on, and Omega just passed out, and Pac wins the match. I enjoyed that match. It was really well done. I gave this match an A-. Meltzer gave it 4.25 stars. CBS gave it a B+. And the sad thing is, Pac and Omega did not like that match. They did not like that match. But man, I loved this match. It's in my top 3. It might have been my 3rd favorite match because of what's going to happen next. Because our next match is the Cracker Barrel Clash. Yes, the Cracker Barrel Clash. Darby Allin, Jimmy Havoc, Joey Janela, in basically a hardcore match, would be the best way to describe this. A lot of sick stuff in this match. You have to go out of your way to see it. Darby Allin, my God, This kid, he does the one spot towards the end where Jimmy Havoc is laying on the steps. Alan goes to the top rope with a barrel, like the actual barrel, and he jumps, and Havoc moves out of the way, and the barrel just breaks, and Alan, lying there back first, and it was just a cringe-worthy moment, but it was done really well. Jimmy Havoc ends up getting the win. If you hadn't seen this match, I'll say this, if you're not a fan of hardcore wrestling, I don't think you're going to like this match. But if you like fun wrestling where there's really no significance into this match, then this is a fun match. I gave this an A-. Meltzer gave it 4 stars. CBS Sports gave it a B-. The next match was an important match. The Dark Order against the Best Friends. The winning team would get the first round bye in the upcoming tag team title tournament. After 2 good matches in a row, this match just fell flat. This was my least favorite match of the entire pay-per-view. It just didn't really connect. I'm not really sure why. It just wasn't there. It really wasn't there. Evil Uno, Stu Grayson get the win. They get the first round bye. And then after the match, the lights go out. And then the lights pop up. And it's Orange Cassidy. And my God, the arena went crazy. It was awesome. And now he's teamed up with Chuck Taylor and Trent Beretta. So that's going to be fun to see how those 3 interact. I mean, I know Taylor and Orange have from their days in Chikara when they were in the Gentleman's Club, but boy, that's going to be fun to watch. I gave the match a C. Maybe should have been lower, but I'm just going to stick with that. Meltzer rated this 2 3/4 stars. CBS gave it a C-. Next match was this was a good match. I thought. Hikaru Shida against Riho. And this is another match where a lot is on the line because the winner of this match goes for the women's title in the match in DC. This was a good match. The fans were a little bit quiet, but it still, at least for me, it kept my attention throughout the match. And you could buy into either one of them winning that match. That's the good thing about a match like that, is you could buy into something like that. Riho ended up getting the win with a spinning crucifix. I said about a week ago, I thought they were going to push Riho, as one of the big stars, and it's really looking that way for the women's division. So now we know October the 2nd, Riho and Nyla Rose for the first ever AEW women's title. I gave this match a B+. Meltzer gave it 3 stars. CBS Sports gave it a C+ as well. So the next match is Shawn Spears against Cody. A lot of questions going in that one. The big one being who was going to be in the corner of Cody. Well, during the match, or not during the match, actually during the entrance, Cody had a Star Trek Deep Space Nine themed entrance. And no, I have never seen a single episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. However, I think I know the costumes enough to be able to pass by. I don't know all the characters' names, but... So, as Cody is making his way towards the ring, because he has his dog Pharaoh with him, they launched the pyro. and it scared the dog. I mean, I'm not laughing that this poor dog got scared, but still, it's like, you know, dogs and pyrotechnics, not really the best move. So, excuse me. Ultimately, it is MJF who is selected as the corner man for Cody, and I really enjoyed this match. Cody does a tope through the middle rope onto Shawn Spears to start the match, and they're brawling on the outside. It's just nuts. They go all over the place. It is fun to watch. Tully is following. I mean, everybody did a very good job in this match. Eventually, Shawn Spears was able to get control in the match, and then you could see the shift, you know, like the change was coming. So Tully interferes, MJF's trying to counter interfere, and then eventually Tully and MJF, they get into a fight, and as this is going on, here comes Arn Anderson, who was in Chicago for the StarCast convention. And I'll mention the next StarCast in a moment. He comes in and he hits a spine buster onto Shawn Spears, which hits this big pop, and Tully can't believe that, you know, his tag team partner, his friend Arn Anderson, would do such a thing like that. That Tully leaves, and he's trying to talk to Arn, and Arn is just walking away. So after that, it's all Cody from there, and Cody gets the win. Good match. I enjoyed this match a lot. I gave this a B+. Meltzer gave this 4 stars. CBS Sports gave it a B-. Now, I might be wrong in where this announcement was, but I'm going to mention it now anyway, because they announced we got one more pay-per-view for this year, because that was a rumor a few weeks ago that AEW might do one more pay-per-view this year, which brings it to 3. So, you know, if they stick to 5 a year, I think they're going to be fine. So, mark the date down, Saturday night, November the 9th. It is AEW Full Gear in Baltimore, Maryland, which means we're going to have another StarCast. The tickets went on sale today for this event, and I'm actually going to go to Ticketmaster right now just to just see how many tickets are still available for this. Not a lot of seats left, folks. Actually, I'm looking at, you know, different colored sections here. Most expensive seats are going to be at around ringside. Oh my God, there's 6 tickets for $3,000. Oh my God, what the heck? And then there's another one that's like $299. It's the VIP section, so that's probably why it's that expensive. But, so yeah, Baltimore, you're getting a pay-per-view, and it's going to be November the 9th. So that means it's going to be another StarCast. I don't know if... See, I would like to think that maybe they'll do something where, you know, other podcasts might come and maybe join in on the fun. You know, like this podcast, that wrestling show, you know, 400 plus episodes. Maybe AEW's listening. Wanna hit me up? I mean, I'm pretty available. You know, gonna be here. No, I'm just kidding. But in all seriousness, AEW, if you're listening, please, if you need someone to be there for the StarCast convention, do a podcast, that wrestling show will do it. Next match, is the ladder match for the AAA Tag Team titles, the Young Bucks against Pentagon Jr. Phoenix. This was the best match of the entire pay-per-view, hands down. One of the crazier ladder matches, I think, in recent memory. Just a lot of spots in there. Just not only good action, but dangerous action was involved. And the one thing I liked about this match was how they didn't attempt to go for the titles a lot. You know how when you're watching a ladder match or a Money in the Bank ladder match, how often these guys go for for whatever is hanging there. Here, they really didn't do that a lot, which I didn't really realize until while watching. I'm like, that's not bad that they're doing it this little bit of time. Just a lot of crazy spots. I don't know how Nick Jackson is able to walk after the table spot he took where he just barely cleared the ropes. I mean, they pushed a ladder. He just barely cleared the ropes to hit one of the tables. It looked dangerous. Just an out of control but outstanding match where Pentagon and Phoenix ultimately got the win to retain the AAA Tag Team titles. After the match, the ghost of John F. Kennedy and Bill Clinton came by and attacked Pentagon and Phoenix. And got no idea who it is. I mean, no idea. This could have been anybody. And they take off the masks, and it's LAX. It's Ortiz and Santana. And the crowd pops. It is crazy. Because there was that discussion of they were either going to go to AEW or they were going to go to WWE. If they had gone to WWE, more than likely they would have been in NXT, which is already a good tag team division. It is. But they just made the tag team division even better than it already is. I mean, let's just think about this real quick. The tag team division in AEW right now, you have the Young Bucks, you got Pentagon and Phoenix, you got LAX, you got the Best Friends, SoCal Uncensored, The Dark Order, Private Party, Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus, just to name a few of the many tag teams right there. I mean, right there you got 8 tag teams in your tag team division. That's a good, healthy number. Oh, and Helico and Jack Evans, that's 9. You got 9 tag teams in your division. That's pretty healthy right there. I gave this match an A+. Meltzer rated this 5.25 stars. CBS Sports gave it an A-. And then we go to the main event. This is the big one. To determine the first ever AEW champion. Hangman Page, Adam Page against Chris Jericho. So Adam Page comes out. He comes out riding a horse, which is really cool. Now this time they didn't use the pyro on the horse because of what happened with Pharaoh earlier. And I'm just going to say this for a record, folks. If I was the crew there for AEW, I would have rather dealt with dog poop than horse poop, because horse poop, not the best smell in the world. Anyway, Aubrey Edwards was the referee. This makes history. She is the first female referee in the history of professional wrestling to referee the main event of a major pay-per-view, and even more importantly, a world championship match. That's pretty big. And it was Chris Jericho who made the call. Really, really cool. Good back and forth action. I mean, it's almost impossible to attempt to go and do a better match than the previous one did. But they did a good job, I thought. Jericho gets busted open at one point. It's back and forth. It's good action. The fans are right there. They're eating into everything there is to this match. And the end of the match, Hangman Page goes for one of his signature moves, the sunset flip. Jericho blocks it. He hits him with the Judas effect. And Chris Jericho wins the AEW Championship. He is the first ever AEW champion. I'm gonna, I know I said it would be Adam Page winning it, but I was okay with Jericho winning it. Now, I know there are, some people who are like, oh, Chris Jericho, he's old, he's got the Brock Lesnar schedule, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so, the difference, but here's the thing, because there are some people who are like, oh, Jericho's gonna treat the AEW title like Brock Lesnar. Here's the thing, and this is what I said on the show last week. Whoever won this match, Page or Jericho, there were two reactions that were going to take place. One of them I knew was going to happen, which I was right, which was the overreaction of Jericho winning the title. Now, let's wait 5 years. 2024. Let's wait 5 years to see if the same reaction from the same people who criticized AEW putting the belt on Jericho, giving him the title, are going to say the same thing in 5 years. Because I don't think they will. I really don't. Because at the end of the day, as much as a lot of people wanted Hangman Page to win, I thought he would win. I didn't have a horse in this race. I was fine with either man winning. At the end of the day, if you want your promotion, your brand new promotion, to be heard, be like, hey, we're here. We're the alternative to WWE. You need a star name, a recognizable name, to be your champion. And I'm not saying Adam Page is not a known name. He is in the wrestling community. But if you go outside of it, and you talk to someone on the street and be like, hey, Hangman Page is the world champ, they'll be like, okay, who's Hangman Page? Whereas if you say, oh, Chris Jericho's the world champion, like, cool, Chris Jericho's still wrestling, that's awesome. That's the reaction. That's the reaction. I gave this match a B+. Meltzer gave this 4 stars. CBS Sports gave it a B. Pretty much a really good pay-per-view from beginning to end. And we did a poll asking for the grades on the Facebook group. Most people gave this show a B grade. Like I said, it was the second best pay-per-view AEW's done. I think Double or Nothing is the top one. One person gave this an A, and one person gave this a D. I'm actually surprised with the D grade. The person who did give it an A wrote, and I'm going to read his comment, I give it an A. It's been a while since any wrestling show got me excited. I was pleasantly surprised. So right there, someone who was excited about a wrestling show ended up enjoying it. I'm not going to say it didn't deserve an A because, there were some good matches. If there had been another, A+ match, maybe I would have given it an A. But it's a strong, strong B. Great show. Don't get me wrong. It was a great show to watch. But, have to wait and see how things turn out. Now, let's talk about the aftermath, both on the air and off the air. So after the pay-per-view ends, they tell us to go to YouTube because they're going to have some post-event stuff. So Jericho gets through the curtain, he takes the mic, and he's cutting a promo about he's the champion. No one is saying a word to him, and he's pointing everybody out, and it's so good. It is so good. It's just great to see this work. And then Jericho gets into the locker room, and he sees they got a deli platter, some pepperoni, some cheese, and is like, he sees the champagne. He's like, a little bit of the bubbly, a bit of the bubbly. Oh, Jericho was so good. Then Adam Page does a post-match press conference with the media, and then Pac comes out, and it continues the story of Pac and Adam Page, because Pac says the only reason he came back to AEW was to get Adam Page. So that match is going to take place at some point down the road. And then Jericho had the one representative of the company do the official presentation of the AEW Championship to him, which was done really well. It was fun to watch. It really was. But then, oh man, this comes out of the you've got to be kidding me. It's like, did this really happen kind of story. So, the day after Jericho wins the title, he takes a plane from Chicago to Tallahassee, and he gets a limo. So he's got the belt. And he decides to go to a restaurant. He goes to a Longhorn Steakhouse, which I've only been to like once or twice. It's a good restaurant. I've had their ribs, actually. Their ribs are really good. Well, he ends up losing the belt. He ends up losing the damn title. Because apparently, what happened, if you want to believe, because it's like, because I'm thinking like either this is one of the great stories that someone has ever thought of, or this is happening in real life, and it's just absolutely crazy and absurd. And there is a story to, there's another story, which I'll mention in a minute. So Jericho puts this video out of, we've called the police. I'm getting my own personal investigators to get the belt, to bring the belt back to me. So the belt is found. The belt's found. Now, what we heard during this whole time is, number one, AEW had a backup title. In case this belt got lost, never to be found. Oh, we have a backup title, by the way, and it cost us $30,000 to make. Oh, God. So the original belt and the backup belt both cost $30,000. So, there's so many stories to this. From what I've heard, and if I am wrong, I apologize. The limo driver drives back to the airport in Tallahassee and is told that there is luggage there that should not be there, being the belt. So they take the belt. There's another story where the belt was just put on the street and somebody just found it. There's so many stories going around about this. It is absolutely crazy. It is bizarre. I love it. It is fan-freaking-tastic. Jericho did manage to get his belt back. So he is in possession of the $30,000 AEW World Heavyweight title. But, oh my gosh, because it's crazy. Like, that whole story was crazy. And then someone brought it up. There was a famous story of when Bruno Sammartino was WWF champion in the first run. Someone stole that title. And it was never found until, like, a few years ago, actually. So, but yeah, crazy stuff with World Championship belts. Because I remember reading in the book about the St. Louis territory, Wrestling at the Chase, which I recommend if you listeners are book fans, go check that book out. Sam Muchnick, the owner, after every tour of the St. Louis territory, would ask whoever was the champion to give him the belt back, so that way no one would lose the belt. So Muchnick has the idea of basically, look, when you're on TV, when you're doing shows, you have the belt. But when we go off the air, or when we're done with the tour, I have the belt back. So that's how it goes. Or that's how it went. And it's not a bad idea. I'm not saying Jericho shouldn't have the belt, but it's not a bad idea to have something like that set in stone. So, like I said earlier, AEW's next event, pay-per-view event, is Full Gear. They already have 2 matches signed, including the main event of this pay-per-view, where Chris Jericho is going to defend the AEW title against Cody. I believe by that point that will be Jericho's second title defense, if he still has the belt, because he's going to make his first defense on the 3rd episode of AEW on TNT. So he'll already have a title defense under his belt if he still has the belt. And the other match that was made, sort of figured it has to happen, because it didn't happen. Jon Moxley and Kenny Omega. So at least we got those 2 matches set for the 9th of November. Alright, that's going to do it for this show, but before I wrap it up, let's get into the plugs. If you have any questions or comments, send an email, wrestlingman@thatwrestlingshow.com. If you send a question, or if you send a comment, I will read it right here on this show. You can follow the show on Twitter at WrestlingShow11. Join the Facebook page. It is That Wrestling Show fan group. You type that in the search bar, hit add, join, whatever it is. I think it's join. And you are on. And check out the website, thatwrestlingshow.com. Get into some plugs of shows that I think you guys should check out. First, the show about the show in the show. No, it's our Vantage Point, the Retro Wrestling Podcast with Joe Murata and Michael Quinn. They take a look at the retro world of professional wrestling. Very interesting discussions here this week, including a what if about Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, week 2 of the Royal Flush of the worst finishing moves in wrestling, and a review of WWF Superstars from March 12th, 1988, as they are getting closer and closer to reviewing WrestleMania 4, which is a Patreon exclusive, which I recommend you guys check out. That is our Vantage Point, the Retro Wrestling Podcast. Also, the Wrestling Podcast About Nothing with former referee Mike Crockett, and normally it's Brian Malonis, but Malonis has been busy the last few weeks. So Mike Crockett's had Brian Fury on with him the last few weeks, and also The Ray. And this week on the episode, they talk about the biggest holy shit moments in wrestling. What moments made those guys say holy shit? That is the Wrestling Podcast About Nothing. And if you are looking for a podcast that reviews the Macho Man Randy Savage's bachelor party before SummerSlam 1991, then Greetings from Allentown is for you with Petey Winston. I sort of spoiled what he watches, but I'm going to mention it anyway. This week, he reviews the episode of Primetime Wrestling from August 12th, 1991, and it is Macho Man Randy Savage's bachelor party a few weeks before SummerSlam. I've actually seen the episode the week before the bachelor party. And I think that week was Greg Valentine, the Nasty Boys, and Sid Justice were the guests on Primetime Wrestling that week. I want to see this bachelor party episode. I'm probably going to listen to this, and then I'm going to be like, I want to see this episode now. So check out Greetings from Allentown. And if you're looking for non-wrestling related podcasts, I've got a couple for you here. Unspooled with Paul and Amy. They watch each movie of AFI's list of the 100 greatest movies of all time, the 2007 edition. This week, they watch and discuss one of my favorite movies of all time, Lawrence of Arabia, with the magnificent Peter O'Toole. This is actually Peter O'Toole's movie debut, for those who didn't know. Also with Omar Sharif. This ends up making a star out of both men. And also, Obi-Wan Kenobi himself, Alec Guinness, is in this movie as well. So check out Unspooled. And listen to Another Digital Citizen with Luke and Fro. This week they have topics including Episode 1 review of The Dark Crystal, Age of Resistance, the show that is on Netflix. The movies of the week, another digital review of Saho, and much, much more. That is this week on Another Digital Citizen. Next week is Clash of Champions weekend. Wow, that doesn't seem possible. So, going to preview Clash of Champions, give you guys my picks as to who will win each match at the pay-per-view and who will be the King of the Ring. We'll find that out in just a week time. On that note, everybody have a good, safe weekend. The pro football season began last night, and while I'm mentioning it, check out my brand new podcast, the JC and Bill Sportscast. Two people from two different countries discussing sports. We dedicated the entire episode previewing the upcoming NFL season, so you want to check that out. That is the JC and Bill Sportscast. So everybody have a good, safe weekend. If you're going to watch football, have fun. Eat food on the grill, have some beers, don't get stupid. And when you're done, come back here next week for another episode of That Wrestling Show, the only podcast where all pro wrestling matters. And as always, wrestle on!